I'm here so I won't get fined.
You think you know sports? Well, you don't know Jack. The You Don't Know Jack Show starts now.
Hello and welcome to the You Don't Know Jack Show. And today on the show, we've got a very special day lined up for you. Grant Baker of the ArmchairAllAmericans.com will be joining the show, and he will be talking about the draft. He's our draft expert. He's our draft guru. He is also the co-host of the Dash to the Draft podcast. Go check that out on iTunes and also on SoundCloud, I believe, through ArmchairAllAmericans.com. And if you didn't know, the You Don't Know Jack Show is powered by the ArmchairAllAmericans.com. ArmchairAllAmericans.com, I should not say the. So please check out ArmchairAllAmericans.com for all of his things that he does. He just also told me that he is going to, or he has released his top 50 big board today about the NFL draft, so we may delve into that a little bit, depending on what we get to and that kind of thing, but please check that out. That has been released. It's on ArmchairAllAmericans.com. That is a big deal, so please check that out. And some show reminders before we get Grant on the line here. Don't forget to look at my articles at ArmchairAllAmericans.com, because the more clicks, the more money I make. But it's not like I'm making a boatload of money, so the more clicks you give me for my articles, the better. Just saying. And don't forget to go to our website, YouDon'tKnowJackShow.com, to look at all of our social platforms, figure out how to donate to the show, or just use Amazon. Please use Amazon. All you got to do is click on one of our links, bookmark it, and every time you shop on Amazon, click your bookmark, and you will give us something in return, commission. We get a commission from Amazon for everything you buy, and there's no extra cost to you, and you'll hear that here eventually on an ad throughout the show, but we need you guys to do it. I just put up a page of different areas of the Amazon website where you can go and use our links, and you can just use our regular link as well. So please do that. And also, you can find all our shows, articles, my articles, pictures, sponsors, and more on our website. Don't forget to find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All Facebook.com at You Don't Know Jack Show, and on Instagram at You Don't Know Jack Show. But Twitter is just Don't Know Jack Show. There's no U in front of that on Twitter if you're looking just for the Twitter handle. So again, don't forget to help the show via Amazon and CarRental8.com by using our promo code JackShow5. You get 5% off your next car rental. Go to our website and you can click on any of the Car Rental 8 links, or go to our sponsors page and click on the link and enter your promo code JackShow5. That's JACSHOW5, all capital letters. And that's JAC again. Don't forget, it's Jonah Aaron Carson. So, and if you want to help the show by going to our Love Us, Help Us page at YouDon'tKnowJackShow.com, fill out a contact form, and we will tell you how you can send us a check. And that is all the reminders I have for you. So, now you get to hear more ads, as we will play an ad. And when we come back, you'll hear me and Grant Baker. We will be discussing the NFL draft that is upcoming. We're also actually going to start the show by talking about March Madness. Of course, UNC winning the national championship, and we may also eventually here in the next week or two get Isaac Shade back on the show to talk about UNC's victory. Obviously, he's very enthused. UNC writer, UNC fan, all of the above, and so he's very excited as he should be. So we'll maybe get him in here, but we'll also talk about it with Grant because he watched a lot of college basketball. So when we come back, that is what you will hear. Grant Baker will talk NFL draft and much more after this.
Heading to Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Baltimore, New York, London, or anywhere in the world and need a rent-a-car? Well, check out CarRental8.com, where you'll find the same car for less money. CarRental8.com sells all the brands like Dollar, Thrifty, Budget, Avis, Hertz, Alamo, Europcar, and so much more at affordable rates. We'll beat any price by a minimum of 30%. So check us out online at CarRental8.com or call us at 1-813-343-8138. That's 1-813-343-8138.
Use our promo code JACKSHOW5, that's JACSHOW5. Use all capital letters to get 5% off your next car rental. Also find the links on our website. Same car, less money, CarRental8.com. And welcome back to the You Don't Know Jack Show. I am now joined by Mel Kiper Jr. No, just kidding. I'm joined by Armchair All-Americans writer Grant Baker. He's also our NFL draft expert / guru, whatever you want to call him. He's analyst for ArmchairAllAmericans.com and a co-host to the newly released Dash to the Draft podcast, which is fantastic. Grant and Rob Paul, the Rams writer, and Matthew Martinez, Steelers writer. He's obviously been on the show, I think, 3 times already. So they are really knowledgeable with the draft, unlike myself. I very much enjoy watching the draft and kind of hearing about prospects, but I am not a film grinder. I am not one of those people. So without any more talking, Grant, finally, we got you on the show. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you very much for having me. I know it's been a while.
It's been a while since we were trying to get you on, and things happen. That's the way it is, but we're glad to have you finally on. So before we get into draft talk, Grant, I think you've watched a little bit of March Madness. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I've watched a lot of March Madness, an unhealthy amount of March Madness, I would argue.
All right, good to hear. Good to hear. So we were going to talk about basically the Sweet 16 the last time we were going to have you on, but that is since gone by the wayside, as well as the national championship. So what are your thoughts on the national championship? UNC, if I can get this right, beat Gonzaga, and I think 75 to 69 was that the final score?
In that range. I think it was 71-65.
Okay.
It was a good game. I thought the officiating was a little much. I think they controlled the game too much for my liking. Certainly, both teams had some issues shooting the ball inside the 3-point line. But I thought it was a good game, not a great game. I think last year we kind of got spoiled by Villanova, North Carolina, because that was an all-timer. But I thought both teams played pretty well. I thought both teams were clearly very, very talented teams. The final 4 games were both really, really good. Oregon versus North Carolina and South Carolina versus Gonzaga. Both those games went down to the wire. So I think it was a solid Final 4.
Yeah, I would say it was very entertaining. I thought one of the underdogs, the 7 seed South Carolina or the 3 seed Oregon, I just thought one of them for sure was going to get in, just because of the year it's kind of been. But did not happen that way, unfortunately, and as I have been made a fool out of myself, not the first or the last time, about picking Gonzaga to be eliminated relatively quickly, as you well know, and as many others of Armchair know. But I picked Gonzaga to be eliminated in multiple brackets before the Sweet 16 because I thought they were overrated. in a weak conference and all that jazz. And I think, honestly, it was kind of a Cinderella story for them, even though they were a 1 seed. But they've always been there, and I think my big problem with Gonzaga is every year I picked them to go all the way or to the Final Four, they didn't, and then the year that I don't think they're going, then they do. So it's just the way March Madness works sometimes.
Right. You feel great for Mark Few, too, the coach of Gonzaga. He's been there almost 20 years. He turned them from nothing into a national powerhouse where they made the tournament. I think every year he's been there. They keep making the Sweet 16. They keep making the Elite Eight. They finally break through, make the Final Four, and even the national title game. So it's great for him. He's a great guy, and he certainly runs the program the right way. Your pick on South Dakota State beating them was very, very suspect. That's for sure.
Well, I didn't pick them I didn't pick South Dakota State in every bracket. I will say that. I picked them in a few, but I was kind of holding my breath on that one, hoping for the first 1 seed to go down in tournament history. That would have been quite something, obviously, but just didn't happen that way, unfortunately, for me and for South Dakota State. But that's the way March Madness works. So, Grant, how did your bracket turn out? I think you had Kentucky winning it all. Is that right?
I did. I had 4 teams I really liked, and that was Villanova, Gonzaga, Kentucky, and North Carolina, based off of their analytical numbers, their leadership, and the way that they played. I thought all 4 of those teams had a really good chance. But the 2 I really liked were Villanova and Kentucky. So I had Kentucky beating Villanova. In the title game, of course, Wisconsin pulled off an amazing upset in the second round to beat Villanova. They certainly played very, very well. And then Kentucky, North Carolina played in the Elite Eight, and North Carolina was just able to outlast them. But I did like Gonzaga. I did like North Carolina. I think I got none of the Final Four teams, if I'm correct, in my main bracket because I really like Notre Dame. I had them beating Gonzaga in the Sweet 16, and that didn't happen. They lost to West Virginia in the second round. So not my best year by any measure, but I did like Gonzaga and North Carolina, just not enough to put them into the Final Four.
Yeah, I didn't get any Final Four. Well, I take that back. In one of my mini brackets, yes, I am one of those guys that fills out a lot of brackets. Sorry, but in one of my brackets I had Kansas winning it all, and they were right for the Elite Eight. Just couldn't quite get to. I think they were in the Elite Eight, right?
Yes, they lost to Oregon in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, they lost to Oregon, which was kind of shocking. I was actually shocked that Oregon went that far with that big injury.
Right.
And a lot of people...
Right, with Chris Boucher's ACL tear, I thought they were going to be pretty early. I actually had Rhode Island to beat Creighton and then advance to the Sweet 16 over Oregon. And they almost did it. I mean, they almost pulled it off. They were right there the whole way.
Yeah, that Rhode Island team, they are very, very scrappy and underrated.
And Creighton was overrated and missing their starting point guard.
Well, I have actually a friend that I went to high school with that goes to Creighton, so I was kind of cheering for Creighton a little bit. But yeah, they had a good year season-wise, but yeah, obviously didn't do much in the tournament. Like I said, I have not had much opportunities to watch a lot of college basketball. Of the 4 sports that we talk about on the show, that's the one I'm least knowledgeable about, and the one I probably care the least about. And maybe that'll change because Iowa's basketball program is building quite a lot. I think it's going to be quite good next year. So that'll be a lot of fun to watch.
I'm actually a big college basketball fan. I have a short little story about the NCAA tournament I'd love to tell you if you'd love to hear it.
Go for it.
So my senior year of high school, I played basketball, and a couple weeks before the season, I hurt my knee in practice. Fortunately, I was able to recover quick enough to where I didn't miss any actual games. But after the season ended, as the tournament was approaching, my best friend from high school said, "Hey, let's skip school, go to your house, and watch the tournament." And I had never skipped school. I had a clean record. I had a very good reputation. I was like, I don't know. And he said, "Come on, you're a senior. You've already gotten into college. What are they going to do?" I said, "Okay." So the way that I did it was I went to the office and I said that I went to school in the morning because games started in the afternoon. I said on Thursday afternoon, I have a knee appointment with Dr. Julius Irving. and the lady sitting in the office said, okay, she clearly never heard of Dr. Irving. I said, yes, remember I hurt my knee. I need to go to the doctor, so I'll miss the rest of the day today. She said, okay. So my friend and I went home. We watched every single game from the first and second round of the tournament. We didn't leave my house over 4 days except to get food and to go play basketball once or twice. So it was just an awesome time. I got back to school that Monday, and our vice principal saw me in the hallway, and he came up to me and he said, Mr. Baker, I heard you had a knee appointment with Dr. J. And we kind of laughed. He said, yes, I did. I said, yeah, I did. And he said, I'm going to let you have this one because you got a clean record, but I'm going to be honest. Next time you do that, make sure you invite me over with you. So,
awesome.
yeah, it was great. It was great. We had a great time. We get together and watch the tournament whenever we can. But, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I was not a clean record guy. I was always, if I didn't feel even semi good, usually I was not going, which was not most of the time. I mean, most of the time I was good, but if there'd be like four times a year that I'd get out of school just because didn't feel like it. But yeah, I'm not as clean as you, Grant. So I know you're. It
certainly benefited me in that situation.
Yes. Anytime you can watch sports and get out of school at the same time, you're winning. So
right.
So any other thoughts on the championship game or the tournament as a whole?
I thought it was a decent tournament. I thought there were some Elite Eight games like Florida versus Wisconsin. That ending was incredible. There were a couple games that were really, really good. The early rounds were kind of disappointing. I was expecting more upsets, more close games. Most of them were 10 to 15-point wins, so they weren't as exciting as last year's tournament. But I thought all in all, we had a good Final Four. We had the Cinderella teams and South Carolina specifically making the Final Four run. I thought it was a decent tournament.
Yeah, I would agree, and yes, I definitely agree with the upsets in the first round. Unfortunately, didn't happen, and other than like some of the ones you kind of predicted, like Minnesota, I think everybody predicted Middle Tennessee to beat them. And there was another game or two that people were kind of predicting. So no really shocking upsets in the first round or two of the tournament. But yeah, it was a decent tournament. I kind of like last year because I actually had Villanova in one of my brackets, a couple of my brackets actually winning. I kind of really liked Villanova last year. And again, I really don't know much about college basketball, so it was probably just an aspiration pick. But still, it was good to have a champion right for once.
Right.
So you have Wisconsin listed here. What did you like about them? Mainly some senior leadership like Nigel Hayes, or what are your thoughts on Wisconsin there?
Well, I mean, the senior leadership is a big deal. It was clear that they had, I think early in the season, they were kind of overrated. And so because of that, a lot of people wrote them off. But a lot of times, teams like that, you can become so overrated to the point that you're actually underrated. And I think that was what happened with Wisconsin because, Nigel Hayes, Ethan Happ, Bronson Koenig, that's a really quality core of three guys. Bronson Koenig is an incredible player, has been his entire career at Wisconsin. Showed that in the tournament with some of the big shots that he hit down the stretch. And then Nigel Hayes was fantastic, and Ethan Happ was great as a sophomore. So the fact that they were able to pull it together, going into the Wisconsin-Villanova game, I was like, I saw Wisconsin play in the first round. I'd seen them in the Big Ten tournament, and I was thinking, man, Wisconsin might really give them trouble. And sure enough, they were just such a quality veteran team that they were able to pull that one out.
Do you think if Villanova, do you think if Villanova beats Wisconsin, do you think they go to the Final Four?
That's speculation, but I think they certainly would have had an easy road. If you look at who they played, I mean, they played 5th-seeded Florida, good team. Villanova is certainly better than Florida. And they played 7th-seeded South Carolina, and South Carolina's calling card is their half-court defense. They're the number one defensive team in the country. Virginia is very good as a half-court offense. They have shooters. They're very technically sound. So I think that Villanova easily could have advanced to the Final Four, maybe even beaten Gonzaga and given North Carolina a run for their money, if not for that Wisconsin team.
Yeah, what did you think of Florida? They were kind of one of the surprise teams in the tournament too, even though they were a 3 seed. But there were people that had them losing. I think the first round, I can't even remember who they played. Was it East Carolina or Florida Gulf Coast or something?
I think it was East Tennessee State.
Or East Tennessee. Yeah, I knew it was one of those smaller schools. But anyways, what did you think of Florida? Did you think they were still overrated at the end, or were you surprised? Or give me your lowdown on Florida.
I think that a lot of people were worried about them. I think they lost all 3 games this season to Vanderbilt, which not a great team by any measure. Excuse me. I think that they were kind of up and down. They were really good defensively, and they had a couple scores. I was kind of surprised that they did that well in the tournament. I thought they were a bit overrated for the 5 seed. They had too many questionable losses for my liking. I thought there should have been a 6 or a 7. But Virginia was just abysmal in the tournament offensively. So they beat East Tennessee, who gave them quite a game. They beat Virginia, who had just been atrocious offensively the last 2 tournaments. And then they played that Wisconsin team. And, it was certainly an excellent game. I mean, 2 running 3-point buzzer beaters to win it was incredible. And the All-SEC matchup in the Elite Eight, South Carolina was just looked better than they did. So I think they had a decent year, but I think that part of their success was their matchups.
Was that Florida State that was the 3 seed that I'm thinking of?
Florida State was a 3 seed.
Okay.
Florida was a 5 seed.
Okay, gotcha. I knew it was one of the Florida teams that were 3, but yeah, I think Florida. Yeah, I would agree. They kind of ran into some easier competition. I don't think anybody thought too highly of Virginia. That's for sure. Especially from past tournaments, as you were saying. And of course a lower seeded team, even though they kind of beat them pretty bad. I think wasn't it like 80-50 or something, 83-59 or somewhere in there.
Right, but East Tennessee State was within the majority of the game. I think they might have actually. They might not have had a lead at halftime, but they were certainly close. And then Virginia just couldn't score.
I can't remember what. Oh, maybe that was. I am like all over the place. Just goes to show you how much I actually pay attention to things. But must have been. I think it was Kansas that actually had that really big game to start the tournament. They beat somebody like 80-50 or something, crazy like that. So.
Yeah, they just smothered them.
Yeah.
If Kansas, I'm very surprised that they lost to Oregon. They played pretty poorly against Oregon, particularly offensively. They were loaded. I mean, absolutely loaded. The only thing they didn't have was a ton of depth in the front court, but they had an All-American point guard, Frank Mason. Josh Jackson was sensational. Devontae Graham looked really good. They were loaded. I was very surprised that they lost in the Elite Eight to Oregon.
Who was it they had last year? Was it, I think, is Ellis, like Perry Ellis or something like that?
Perry Ellis, that's correct. The guy that was there for about 8 years, named after the clothing line.
Yeah, if they had him, do you think they go past Oregon?
That's really difficult to say. The problem with the Oregon game was that Kansas just did not shoot well and didn't score enough offensively. So I don't know if he necessarily would have helped them out that much.
Okay. If you couldn't tell, I do like speculation. I do like to think that way sometimes.
I do too. Don't worry about it.
All right. Well, if you don't have any more thoughts on the tournament, we will take a break and then get into the real meat and potatoes of the show, the NFL Draft.
Sounds good.
All right. Sounds good. We will take a break, and when we come back, NFL Draft with Grant Baker coming up on the You Don't Know Jack Show right after this.
Do you enjoy shopping online? Do you like shopping on Amazon? If you answered yes to both of those questions, listen up. You can help the show while shopping. Go to our website, youdon'tknowjackshow.com, and click on any of the Amazon links. Once you have done that, bookmark the link, and whenever you shop on Amazon, click our link. Amazon, the best way to help our show, because there's no extra cost to you.
Welcome back to the You Don't Know Jack Show. Again, joined by Grant Baker of the Armchair All-Americans, armchairallamericans.com, and the Dash to the Draft podcast. And Grant, give us a little bit of a history of why you like the draft and your work with studying the draft.
So I think I've always enjoyed the strategic aspect of sports, front offices especially, trades, free agency, and the draft is kind of the biggest part of that. So while most people tend to focus on what's happening on the field, and certainly I love that as well, I've just always been really intrigued by the front office aspect of it. Ever since I was a kid, I loved watching the draft. I loved trying to figure out why people went where they did. And a couple years ago, I started learning how to scout prospects and trying to project where they go and pick sleepers and pick busts. So it's just something I just have a passion for. I really love watching tight ends from Toledo at 1:30 in the morning. So
all right.
It's not for everybody, but it's something I love doing.
Right. Yeah. No. I can hear you on that one. There's, I know there's plenty of guys that just love watching film on guys, and that is definitely for some people. And for me, I just look to the experts and say, hey, where's this guy going? Hey, then I can make fun of that person later when they don't end up going anywhere close to that. But then they can make fun of me for picking Gonzaga to be eliminated in the before the Sweet 16. So it works out both ways. Did you kind of just get an interest out of it out of the blue, or have you kind of always enjoyed that aspect of the game?
I'd say I've always enjoyed that aspect of the game more than maybe others. I started doing draft work where I would kind of just figure out where people expected, guys from my team to go. So I'm a Raiders fan. So I'd always try and figure out, like, what do the experts say Raiders going to be picking? And then I was like, why don't I just do my own research on who I think the Raiders are going to pick? I think I know some stuff about football. I'd love to, watch tape on the guys that they're talking about and see what they're like. And I think that just kind of evolved to me loving the draft and me doing it for, all 32 teams and as many prospects as I can.
All right, and I forgot to mention that you are on Twitter also, and you're on Twitter at GrantBaker34, and Baker spelled as you would expect Baker to be spelled, even though, Grant, maybe you don't know this, but there are Bakers spelled with 2 Ks.
Right, those people are weird.
Yes, and actually, I think there's a few from Northwest Iowa area here where I am located, if you did not know that. So it's kind of interesting, but that is not the proper way to spell Baker, according to Grant and how he spells it, and according to my preference. So. And
how the profession and occupation spells it.
Yes, that's right. Baker's dozen, 13.
13.
All right.
Why I don't have a column picking out my favorite 13 prospects from the week and calling it Baker's dozen is just, I don't know why I haven't done that yet, because that is way too easy to do.
Yes. You definitely should do that. That should be on your agenda for writing your next article. Maybe your 13 top 13 players you like, or whatever, 13 top prospects, something like that. But if you
want to see my 50 top prospects, I actually just did a big board that got published this morning.
Yes, good transition here. Grant's big board 2.0, as he does not do like 9.3s like Mel Kiper or Todd McShay does. He actually takes his time and doesn't try to get all these out. Maybe they don't do that, but there are some people that just go crazy with trying to get drafts out there, and some people do it with the worst possible guys in the draft going number 1 overall, that people just go crazy with mock drafts. And Grant is not one of those people, at least not, maybe he does those in private, but in public he does these 2 at a time, or 1 at a time, and takes his time to do these. So
just want to make sure I've seen everybody enough to where I'm confident putting them where I am.
Yeah, that's always good. And then Grant, I know I didn't really talk to you about this, but what differences have did you maybe compare to and contrast from your first big board?
So the first big board, I only did 25 prospects. This was over a month ago. So before the combine, we didn't have as good an idea of everybody. I had some prospects much higher. I had Mitch Trubisky, I think, at 16 on my first big board. I had a couple guys in the top 25 that had no business being there, like Zach Cunningham. For the most part, though, I had guys like Solomon Thomas outside of the top 20, I think, which is ridiculous in hindsight. But the main thing is I went from 25 guys to 50 guys on this latest big board.
So Solomon Thomas has moved all the way up from outside the top 20 or 25 all the way to number 5. Grant, what are your do you think so obviously you think he's the second best defensive end in the draft or defensive lineman in the draft next, of course, to Myles Garrett?
Right. So I think Thomas is just incredibly versatile and athletic, and I really like what he brings to the table. Whether you play 3-4, whether you play 4-3, he's going to be able to play all 3 downs in either scheme, really regardless of what you run. He's a very impressive athlete, but he's also incredibly intelligent. He's technically skilled. The only thing I'm worried about, he's a little undersized, so that could limit his ability to play on the defensive line. But if that's not a big issue, he's going to be a stud for a long time.
So now we can have a little bit of a debate here at number 6, where you have Leonard Fournette, and I am not a Leonard Fournette fan. I think he has definitely got the running ability, and he would be a good running back. That's why it's called running back. But I don't think he'd be a good halfback or a full down back. I think he's a good. I think the best comp for him is an oversized Adrian Peterson, maybe a LeGarrette Blount, but I think he's a better runner than LeGarrette Blount. But what are you? I know you have him at 6 here on your big board. I don't want to spoil your big board entirely, so people can read it and you can make some money. But why do you have him at 6, and why do you have him in front of these other running backs?
Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, those guys are behind Fournette on my running back list. All 3 of those guys are unquestionably better third down backs. None of those guys touch Fournette on first and second down. Fournette is 240 pounds with 4.5 speed and the ability to make people miss in the open field. That is just not something you can teach to prospects. Most guys that are big and fast do not have the ability to make cuts that Fournette has. So whenever I put him in the top 10, the only guy of the somewhat recent history that has been that big, that fast, and that ability to make cuts and run away from people is Adrian Peterson. And so that's why you're seeing all of these comparisons to Peterson. I mean, I'm not going to say that Peterson was a great third down back, because he wasn't a great third down back at all. He was a first and second down, pound the football between the tackles kind of back. And if that's what you need, Leonard Fournette is exactly the guy that you want. So I think he's not great as a blocker and he's not great as a receiver, but he shows the potential in those areas. He's just not very committed to it at LSU. He's got decent hands. He just doesn't run very good routes. He can block at that size, clearly. He just wasn't committed to it at LSU. So I think at the pro level, that might not be that big of a deal. He could be an all-pro level back.
See, I am kind of in the opposite direction. I don't think he's going to be able to accustom himself to doing those other things very well. Adrian Peterson never adjusted to catching the ball out of the backfield. I mean, he did to an extent, but he was never good enough at it. He couldn't stay on the field.
Adrian Peterson's going to go to the Hall of Fame, though. Like, you don't have to be a great receiver to be a great running back.
Right, but if you're looking from the Vikings offense, you wanted more of a playmaker, like a Jerick McKinnon type, in the fact that he can catch the ball in the backfield and he can run, or like maybe even more of a newer comp, Latavius Murray, which maybe can't do those things as well as you would want a third down back to do.
Latavius Murray is a watered-down version of Adrian Peterson. He's not a great receiver out of the backfield either. But most teams have 2 backs for this reason. You have a running back on first and second down. You have a running back on third down that can catch the ball out of the backfield and as a receiving threat. Fournette is your first and second down back. He's not going to be your third down back, but those guys are not very hard to find. You can often pick up starting caliber third down backs in the 5th, 6th, 7th round of the draft. So I don't necessarily think that's as big a deal as people are making it out to be.
But then my question would be, is a one-dimensional running back worth a top 10 pick?
In the right fit, absolutely. So I think a fit like Carolina, 8th overall, whenever you've got Cam Newton in the backfield and they clearly need another running back, I mean, I could see that happening very easily.
Yeah, I could see Carolina or a team like an Oakland Raiders team. Obviously, he's not going to fall.
Well,
that
he's not
far.
going to be there that far, right?
But just going with teams that could use that kind of a guy. I think if I am maybe the Eagles, you could maybe even make a case for Fournette to go to the Eagles.
They could absolutely use Leonard Fournette at the 14th pick. And he might fall that far because like you said, a lot of these teams don't need a running back, but purely off of his talent, I have to put him 6th overall.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to say Carolina is going to look at this running back class, and I'm going to say they're going to pass up on Fournette just because, of course, if he's there. I think a lot of teams are going to pass on running backs in the top 10 because they know how deep of a class it is. And they know that even in the 3rd, 4th, maybe even 5th round or later, they can get at least a situational running back, situationally gifted running back, whether it's a ground and pound guy like a Donta Foreman or a Samaje Perine, or if it's a all around back like a Dalvin Cook or a Christian McCaffrey.
There's a lot of running backs to pick from, that's for sure.
Yes, and somebody was saying maybe it's not as good as people are saying, but it's like I think you are definitely overlooking this. It is definitely a great running back class, but I have
4 running backs in my top 19, just to clarify.
Yeah.
My top 19 players, there's 4 running backs.
Yes, it's crazy. And there's a few other positions that are loaded as well, and one of those being tight end. Tight end is loaded in this draft. O.J. Howard, who I think is the number 1 surefire pick in the whole draft, I think. What's your thoughts on O.J. Howard? You have him at 8 on your big board.
I have him at 8 on my big board, which is very, very high for a tight end because he's top 3 as far as surefire picks, in my opinion. He fits any scheme as a tight end. He's a very, very good blocker, very, very good blocker. He ran the same 40-yard dash time as Fournette, but he was 10 pounds heavier. He can run routes. He's got pretty good hands. Like I said, he fits any system you want. I think the best fit would be for a power system team like Tennessee that could use a tight end to stretch the seam down the field. That would be just filthy.
That would be.
I know they've got Delaney Walker, but he's a little older, and they play with 2 tight ends all the time, so that could still work.
Yeah, and some people were saying, Delaney Walker's the only reason, but if you get Marcus Mariota another weapon, his receiving core is better. I think they got a couple of guys, but
they could use the number 1 receiver, number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah, they could still use a receiver, or they could use a tight end to go pair up with Delaney Walker. So,
if you think about it, New England a couple years ago had a strategy where their best receiver was, I think, Wes Welker, just a slot guy, and they played the 2 tight end system with Hernandez and Gronkowski, and they were just unstoppable in the passing game.
Oh my gosh! You imagine that offense in the red zone? Nobody's gonna be able to cover both those tight ends.
Exactly.
It's crazy. It's like the Patriots just did. You thought they had enough weapons on offense with Edelman and Hogan and Amendola and Mitchell and whoever else you can think of, obviously, the tight ends. But then they decided, you know what, we don't have enough weapons. Let's go get Brandon Cooks. So they get Brandon Cooks and Dwayne Allen to put behind Rob Gronkowski. Hopefully he comes back healthy, which he probably will. So New England stocking up on players they already had, and one thing I want to get your thoughts on this, Grant. How much do you think that teams are weighing in on the future when they draft? Because it seems to me a lot of teams are realizing that, like the Vikings did with Mackenzie Alexander, they realized that Captain Munnerlyn was probably not going to come back next year, which he didn't, and they decided to draft this guy in the 2nd round, Mackenzie Alexander, to eventually take that cornerback spot, not necessarily his spot in general, but to fill that need for next year. How many teams do you see that do that all the time?
Well, I think the strategy – by the way, the Alexander pick, I love that pick. I had a first-round grade on him last year.
Yes,
I think the strategy as a GM that I've understood is you don't draft for this year. You draft for the next 5 years. So after that, it's really difficult to kind of project what your team's going to be. but you don't draft for this year. You draft for the next 5. So a lot of teams draft BPA, best player available. So they just draft the best player on their board. The Ravens are notorious for doing that. Regardless of position, you take the best player and let them develop. But you definitely think about the future. Some teams are a little different. Some teams, they understand they have a very small window, and so they need to load up on talent right now to kind of maximize their chances of winning a Super Bowl. Other teams are younger, so they can take a chance on a guy that might need some time to develop or stockpile picks for the future. But you like I said, the rule of thumb is you draft for the next 5 years.
Absolutely. And for people that say, which prospect is it that's like 25? Is that Garrett Bowles?
Garrett Bowles out of Utah, right.
So I would say to those people that say that he's too old, I would say, yeah, but if he's good for the next 5 years, that's a win. You know, I mean, yeah, because if you look at the Vikings, Cordero Patterson, a wasted first-round pick. I mean, obviously a phenomenal kick returner. Maybe they didn't use him the right way. You can make all these arguments, but I think that's a wasted first-round pick. Treadwell last year, obviously a wasted first-round pick so far.
Well, it's a little early on Treadwell,
right.
But yeah, it certainly looks like he's a bust at this point.
Yes, and actually, I am a part of another podcast now, Norse Code, and one of the guys, Reef Hassan, a Vikings guy, just wrote an article on Treadwell and other receivers that actually had a terrible rookie year and came back. And he said that he gave a hint to the article by saying there's not too many. So hopefully Treadwell will be an outlier. But
well, if you think about, just real quick, Tim Brown, a guy for the Raiders, first 3 years in the league, 2 or 3 years in the league, really didn't do anything as a receiver. Was effective as a returner, but minimal production. And then year 3 or 4, year 5, just absolutely took off and became a Hall of Fame talent.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's certainly rare, but it's possible he can still develop.
But as of right now, we are all wishing that we selected Michael Thomas instead of Laquan Treadwell.
He's a beast. Michael Thomas is a stud.
Yes. So just a few more questions here before we get back into the notes. I'm going off topic again, as usual. Reuben Foster, you have him as your number 1 linebacker. Surprise, surprise. What do you like about him, and do you think he's better than C.J. Mosley coming out?
That's tough. So I can't that's a tough question. I don't remember much about Mosley whenever he came out, to be completely honest with you. I didn't do as much film study back then. I will say Foster has everything you want as an inside linebacker with a couple of minor exceptions. So all the major things you want to check off, size, experience, sideline to sideline speed, ability to shed blockers against the run, ability to stay on the field all 3 downs and cover. He's got all those things. So from that perspective, he could be an all-pro talent. I don't like the fact he's got a slow first step. He sometimes appears indecisive. That kind of worries me a little bit. And then obviously he got dismissed from the combine. So some character issues possibly there. That's tough. I've got him 10th overall on my board in the clear-cut number 1 linebacker. I think he'll be a really good player in the league. But as far as versus Mosley, I really can't give you a fair answer on that.
All right. So taking a look here at, let's see, I had something. Oh, yes, cornerbacks quickly. What are your thoughts? This is also one of those positions where you look at, holy smokes, there is a lot of cornerbacks. Would you say the cornerback class is almost as plentiful as the running back class?
You can make the argument. Certainly you can make the argument. I would say the difference between the tight end class and the cornerback class is in rounds 4 through 6 for the tight ends, you're still going to get like second or third round talents. For the corners, there's just a lot of them between like 15 and 40 on the board. So there could be a lot of guys that get drafted in the early second round that have late first round grades. That would be the big difference for me. So I would say it's deep, but I wouldn't say it's as loaded as tight end is.
Would you say it's as loaded as running back? You probably don't think so.
No, I would still say running back ahead of corners, just because, like I said, they've got 4 running backs in the top 19, which is just incredibly rare.
Would you say running back ahead of tight end, though? Trick question.
Yeah, it's tough. I would say, I'm gonna say tight end, just because I can't think of the last time a tight end class was ever like this.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. All right, Fabian Moreau is your last guy on the big board. I won't spoil any more after this. He's a guy that I had possibly the Vikings picking up, and I thought maybe in the 4th to 6th round, but you have him way up here. Obviously, you can't tell if he's going to go that high, but talent-wise, you think he's 50th overall. You say he's raw, but what do you like about Fabian Moreau?
Well, just real quick, when I think about Fabian Moreau, there was a guy last year that came out that reminds me a lot like him, and that's Artie Burns out of Miami, and I think he was a 24th or 25th pick in the draft out of Pittsburgh.
Yes.
He's skyrocketed up boards. I know Mike Mayock has Moreau as a first-round pick in his latest mock draft. Moreau, you look at him, he's over 6 feet tall. He ran the 40 in 4.35 seconds. He's got really fluid hips. He's a physical tackler. He's just raw, and whenever you have those kind of tools as a corner, those guys tend to be first-round picks. Raw corners, if you have all those measurables ticked off, the hips, the speed, the length, you get moved up the draft pretty high. We saw that with Eli Apple and Artie Burns last year. I think we're going to see it with Fabian Moreau this year.
Yeah, it has been interesting to watch him rise on the draft board. So before I ask any more questions, we'll go back to the show notes here. Give me your top 3 in each of the skill positions here. We kind of already said some of them, so if it's a repeat on some of them, you don't have to repeat. But quarterback, wide receiver, running back, tight end, top 3, go for it.
All right, so my number 1 quarterback is DeShone Kizer at Notre Dame. I know that's going to surprise a lot of people, but Kizer has a really impressive arm. He is played in a more pro-style scheme than any of the other top quarterbacks. People will say, well, he didn't start a lot of games at Notre Dame. He was fighting for his job. Maybe he's not as refined. His accuracy and footwork could improve. That's all true, but he has a lot of tools, and I think if I was going to bank on any quarterback in this draft to be a starting quarterback 5 years from now, I would say Kizer. I think I have him 20th or so on my big board. He's my number 1 quarterback. He's not as good as a guy like Carson Wentz last year, as good as Jameis Winston or Marcus Mariota the year before. So I'll say Kizer 1. Number 2, I will say Deshaun Watson. I know a lot of people like him as the number 1 quarterback just because he was so good at Clemson, leading the team to the national title this year, almost last year as well, because he's got the leadership, he's got the intangibles, the mental things we like to talk about our quarterbacks having. The fact of the matter is he doesn't have as good an arm as Kizer. It's pretty average, honestly. He's got some accuracy issues from intermediate to deep. If you watch a lot of the passes that he threw to Mike Williams made a lot of really impressive catches bailing him out. He also played at that spread style system out of the shotgun. It's going to take him a while to adjust. I just don't think that the odds of him being a good NFL quarterback are as good as Kizer. And then third, I've got Trubisky. I was a lot higher on Trubisky earlier in the process, but the more I went over his film, the more I realized he's throwing a lot of slants and bubble screens to inflate his numbers. He's got a lot of trouble making deep throws that aren't just wide open, and he made a lot of questionable decisions. And he also played in that spread system. He was only a 1-year starter at North Carolina. So I just have a lot of big questions about Trubisky. I don't think he's a first-round talent at all. So those are my top 3 quarterbacks.
Just real quick on Watson. Obviously, he was a winner at Clemson. That's one thing you got to look at if you're talking about it. Obviously, a great team around him. But one thing that always held me back with him, going back to last year and this year even, were the interceptions. How big of a factor do you think the interceptions will translate into the next level? And then you can continue on with your other prospects here.
Well, that's just part of the issue he's had with his accuracy and some decision-making flaws. I mean, he never makes complex reads of defenses. And so when you ask him to do that, he's going to throw a lot of picks. He never reads the entirety of the defense. He usually only reads like one guy which is something you really can't do at the NFL level. So that could be a really big issue if he's thrown into a starting job right away. So moving on to running back, I already mentioned Fournette as the number one back just because of his combination of speed and power. My number two back is Dalvin Cook. He reminds me a lot of Jamal Charles, kind of a third down back with the ability to run on first and second down. Really well-rounded. I think he's underrated as an actual runner. His ability to break tackles and make cuts is really impressive. My third back is Christian McCaffrey. I think you can play him at running back or wide receiver. He's going to be really successful in that Reggie Bush kind of role. 700 rushing yards, 700, 800 receiving yards. Just someone that defenses have to account for all the time because he's very difficult to defend against. Not as good between the tackles, I understand, but his ability to make cuts, make people miss, lateral movement is just really, really impressive. And so I think he'll be a really good player in the NFL. Moving on to my wide receivers, my number one receiver is Corey Davis out of Western Michigan. He is dealing with an ankle injury that caused him to miss both the combine and his pro day. However, he is an absolute star. 6'2", 6'3", very, very impressive route runner. Very good at getting separation from defenders, making routes look the exact same. He can go deep. He can be a threat in the red zone. He's got great hands. I think he's a number one receiver in the NFL. I really, really am impressed with him. Number two is going to be John Ross out of Washington. Little smaller than the other receivers on this list, but he ran at 4.2, 240 time, just ridiculous speed. He interviewed really, really well at the combine. A lot of general managers were impressed with him. He's a very impressive route runner. He's got incredible foot quickness. I am worried about his injury history. The guy that he kind of reminds me of coming out of college, and you'll know this, remember this guy as a Vikings fan, is Percy Harvin. Just that amount of speed and quickness and versatility, but he does have the injury issues, which could be a really, really big deal. So my third wide receiver is going to be Mike Williams out of Clemson. Physically very intimidating, very good at using his body and physicality to beat up on corners. Really worried about his ability to run routes. The thing that Ross and Davis do very well is that they are very efficient route runners. Williams is not. He is very sloppy with his routes. He just relies on being bigger and stronger than defensive backs to get open. That's not going to work at the NFL. He's going to have to work on that. But I do think his ability to make contested catches, go over the middle, and just use his body, like I said, to box out corners could make him a very good receiver at the next level. And then finally, tight ends. We touched on it earlier. O.J. Howard, very safe pick, very versatile. Already went over him. My number two tight end is actually Evan Ingram. And a lot of people have David Njoku ahead of him. I have Ingram just because I think his speed and the slot and his ability to run routes is going to be a very, very big asset. Njoku is much, much more raw. Ingram needs to be able to line up in a three-point stance if he's actually going to play tight end, and he needs to learn how to block. But as a receiving tight end, very, very impressive, playing that H-back style. And then third, I have Njoku out of Miami, David Njoku. Long, very much an NFL body, very good at jump balls, incredible vertical leap, long arms, very good hands, but like I said, very raw. So if you get Njoku to develop into his full potential, certainly could be an all-pro in the Tony Gonzalez, Rob Gronkowski mold, but he's very raw, and you'll have to develop him and, of course, take a chance on him.
Would you say Evan Ingram is maybe a good comp for him would be Jared Cook maybe?
I think that's I think that's a very good comparison, actually. Just very speedy, very good receiver, not necessarily a great blocker. I think that's a good comparison.
All right, because, that kind of came to mind because, obviously, the Raiders signed him, which obviously I think has been the best move by the Raiders so far in their offseason. We'll talk about the Raiders here in a minute. But any other thoughts? Let's see here. I got some other notes I missed on here. Top 5 defensive players in the draft, in your opinion, and a little bit of, you don't have to spend time on Garrett because we know how good he is and everything, but some of the other players, top 5 defensive players, go for it.
So my top 5 defensive players are actually just my top 5 players, period. My top 5 players in the draft are all defense. 1, I do have Garrett. Number 2, I've got Malik Hooker out of Ohio State, the free safety. And there's a lot of debate between him and Jamal Adams. I think Malik Hooker is the next Ed Reed. Instincts, ball skills, speed, range, just ridiculous levels of range. You can try and throw deep on him, but when he's playing deep safety, it is almost impossible to do. There were a lot of teams that tried to throw, the long ball down the sideline. Hooker came over from the middle of the field and made him pay. So if you're looking for a deep safety to play the Reggie Nelson, Ed Reed role, Eric Weddle, that's your guy. And I think he's absolutely going to be a stud in the next level. So I got him as my number 2 overall player. Number 3, I've got Marshawn Lattimore. Number 1 corners are really hard to find in the NFL, and they are big-time commodities if you can find them. And I think Marshawn Lattimore looks a lot like Patrick Peterson. When you talk about 6 feet tall, sub-4.4 40 time, does not let people get any separation of man-to-man, has the ball skills to make you pay if you throw near him. I mean, watching tape on Lattimore is incredible because quarterbacks wouldn't even look at the receiver he was defending. Like they would, for an entire half, just not even look at him. Forget throwing to him, wouldn't look at him because they knew he wasn't open. So that's just incredible levels of respect. 4th overall, I have Jamal Adams, the safety out of LSU. He's not the free safety with the range and the ball skills like Hooker is, but he's a really impressive in the box against the run. Super versatile, incredible leadership and intangibles and character, just A+ across the board in those categories. A little bit shorter than Hooker, but a bit thicker than he is. Ability to, like I said, really influence the running game and the passing game. That versatility, a team like San Francisco picking 2nd overall might take him at 2nd overall. And then 5th, I have Solomon Thomas, who I mentioned earlier. Just an athletic monster with a ton of versatility. I think he's going to be a stud for a long time.
All right. As you can tell, Grant Baker knows his stuff. He does his homework. Taking a look now, Grant, some of the late bloomers, maybe, so to speak. Rounds 5 through 7. Give me 3 guys you like on both sides of the ball, offensively, defensively. Go for it.
All right. So rounds 5 through 7 is kind of difficult because I'm not going to go necessarily off my grade. I'm going to go off everybody else's grade. So these are guys that I like a lot more than everybody else at the back of the draft. So on offense, first we're going to start at a running back. Donnell Pumphrey out of San Diego State. You may know him as DJ Pumphrey. Broke Marshall Faulk's all-purpose yards record at San Diego State, which is just incredible. He's very small. He's not going to be a first and second down back, but he is a third down back machine. He's got great lateral quickness, great agility, very good receiver out of the backfield, runs pretty good routes. So I think he'll get picked up in the 5th or 6th round, and teams are going to be very happy having him as their third down back. My second guy is going to be a receiver out of North Carolina, Ryan Switzer. A lot of teams are starting to employ that strictly slot receiver guy, the Welker, the Edelman, the Cole Beasley, guys like that. I think Ryan Switzer is the next variation of them. Very quick, very fast, runs really precise and clean routes over the middle. Great slot receiver. Not going to be an outside receiver. Short, doesn't necessarily have the ability to go on the outside, but he's going to be an absolute beast in the slot. And then third, I've got Michael Roberts, the tight end out of Toledo. 270 pounds, 6'4", ran really well at the combine. Had 16 touchdowns his senior year at Toledo. Red zone machine. I have not seen him drop a pass yet. He's going to have to improve his blocking and his overall polish, but he's got, like I said, 270 pounds, ran really, really well at the combine, 16 touchdowns. That's an incredible amount of numbers. So that's my offensive guys. And then defensively, my first one is a really deep sleeper. DJ Jones, a defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. I've seen a lot of sites that say he's going to go undrafted. 320 pounds, 6'1", 6'2", defensive tackle. Very, very athletic. So that's the kind of guy that can play nose tackle or 3 technique on the inside of a line and be a rotational guy, stick in the NFL for a long time. Bit raw, very raw even, but 320 pounds and athletic is just not something you see every day. So I think that guy can be, DJ Jones out of Ole Miss can be a really good player. Ewan Price, the edge defender out of Pittsburgh. He's only 5'11". He's a little under 6 foot, and that is what is causing him to fall so far. If he was 6'4", he would be a first-round pick. He is an absolute monster. He's got a great motor, very technically sound. He's drawing a lot of comparisons to Elvis Dumervil just because of the height and how ferocious he plays. So if he can overcome the height and the short arms, he can be a really good player, but that's certainly a big hurdle to climb. My second player is going to be Josh Harvey Clemens, safety out of Louisville. 6'4", 220 pounds, really athletic, long arms, a lot of people are comparing him to Cam Chancellor. The big problem is he's got 3 separate incidents of failed drug tests for marijuana. He has several off the field incidents and some minor injury questions. So a lot of teams are going to have him off the board because of that, but he could be a real steal in the 6th round, 5th round, 7th round area just because, like I said, a lot of Cam Chancellor comparisons, and I really like that comparison because he's so physical and versatile and just athletic and at that size. And that's all 3 defensive guys as well.
All right, so hopefully the Vikings can pick up one of these deep sleepers for you here, or your
I think
team,
Josh
right?
Harvey-Clemens would make a lot of sense for the Vikings, actually, just because Andrew Sendejo is not a great strong safety, and I think Harvey-Clemens is the kind of guy that would really help them out in the back end.
But Grant, didn't you know that Andrew Sendejo just had the best season of his career?
I mean, if a guy hits 150 for 3 years and then hits 180, that's the best season of his career, too. He still needs to be replaced.
Yes, I know. We've been looking for quite a while to find a safety opposite of Harrison Smith. Maybe,
I love Harrison Smith, by the way. Harrison Smith is very underrated and very much a superstar.
Yes, and one thing that I think could potentially be something, maybe Jaron Kearse develops into being that guy opposite of him, whether it's on the back end. I think Jaron Kearse is probably a better cover guy than tackling. Maybe I'm totally off on that, but...
Well, I mean, Kearse is actually very similar to Harvey-Clemens in that 6'4" athlete out of Clemson last year fell all the way to the 7th round just because he had some questions about his motor and how much he loved the game, not because of necessarily what he could do athletically. So
yeah. So I mean, and Mike Zimmer likes to use Harrison Smith at the line of scrimmage to blitz, and he likes to use him to drop back in coverage. So if he can get another one of those guys that can do one or the other or both, that would be just sick to see in the back of the Vikings secondary there. Interesting thoughts there. Moving on to some more draft talk. Fitz for the Vikings at the pick in the 2nd round, number 48. What do you think's the best fit, and maybe some other guys there?
So the number 1 guy that I wrote down whenever you asked me this was Taylor Moton, the right tackle out of Western Michigan.
Love it.
Just because the Vikings offensive line is a bit rough, to be nice, and they could certainly use an upgraded offensive tackle. Moton's issue is he doesn't have very good feet. They're very clunky. They're very slow. Outside of that, he's a very good right tackle. He's got great hand usage, really powerful, pretty good in the running game. He just has a lot of problems with speed off the edge. So if you can have a running back help him chip at the line of scrimmage, or if he can just get better with his footwork, he'll be a really good player. I think he'll be there in the 2nd round. This is a really weak offensive tackle class, so he might not be there, even though I've got a late 2nd, early 3rd grade on him. But I think he would be a good fit for you guys at pick 48, knowing your needs.
He would.
If you can't get him, there's some other offensive linemen. Dan Feeney, guard. Deion Dawkins, maybe a right tackle, probably going to need to play guard. Terrible footwork. But if not for that, I think Josh Jones out of NC State, another strong safety, could really be the guy for you. He's very versatile, coverage, run stopping, lining up in the slot and covering slot guys. So like you mentioned, having another guy like Harrison Smith to kind of be a jack of all trades, I think Josh Jones could really be that guy for you.
Sweet, man. I also kind of like Budda Baker, too.
He's not going to be there.
Not going to be there, obviously.
Not in my mind.
But if there is a safety, or if there's even a guy that you think is worth trading up for if you're the Vikings, I would say him or an offensive. And I wouldn't even trade up for an offensive lineman, honestly, just because you never know who's going to fall, and you just signed some guys. I mean, obviously, I'm not a big fan of Mike Remmers or necessarily even Riley Reif, but I just wouldn't.
Riley Reif's not bad. Riley Reif's not bad.
He's not bad. Yeah, oh yeah. Well, we found that out last year with TJ Clemmings.
Oh my, yeah.
Since we've got 2 Cowboys fans that are part of the show, what are you got some fits for Cowboys at 28?
So the 2 big glaring needs the Cowboys have, both defensively, pass rusher and cornerback. Fortunately, they should have a lot of talented guys there at 28 for them to pick between. If they go the edge rusher route, if Charles Harris falls to them at 28, I've got him 24th on my board. Just another little tidbit for you guys. I've got him 24th on my board. He can stop the running, get after the passer. Pretty good hand usage, a lot of different moves, nice little spin move. I think he's going to be a pretty good pass rusher in the NFL. If he falls them at 28, I think they'll take him. The intriguing option is that they go after Takkarist McKinley if he's there.
Oh, that'd
a
be
lot
nasty.
of a lot of analysts have him as a top 15 guy. I don't. I'm not as high on him just because I see a lot of Dion Jordan in him, and that is certainly nothing that you want in a prospect as far as a little too inconsistent for me, doesn't give you anything against the run, just relies on his pure athletic ability to beat players and doesn't actually have any pass rushing moves. All those things are what Dion Jordan had when he came out, and I see a lot with McKinley too. So he's got that all-pro potential as far as length, speed, power, just ability to whip people on any given possession. But I don't know. So that's a very intriguing guy if he's there and they really like what they see in him. And cornerback, the guy I think they would love to have at corner is Garyon Conley. I don't know if he'll be there or not. Conley's another guy that's very up and down the board for some people. Some have him as high as 10th to Buffalo. Others have a second-round grade on him. I got him as a midweight first. Long, pretty good hands, pretty fast. Just checks all the boxes as a corner. If they don't get Conley, they could take Tre'Davious White, but he's a little undersized for me. I think he's a nickel corner, not an outside corner. Or Quincy Wilson. The problem with Wilson is he's not a traditional corner. He's one of the bigger Brandon Browner types. I think he's 6'2", 6'3", long arms, weighs like 215. He's got decent, pretty average hips and footwork. He just kind of relies on his size to press and play zone coverage. So I think, edge and corner are what they want to go for. If Harris or Conley falls to them, though, I think they're getting great value.
Hey listeners, don't forget to find You Don't Know Jack Show on Facebook at facebook.com/You Don't Know Jack Show, Twitter at twitter.com/Don't Know Jack Show, and Instagram at instagram.com/You Don't Know Jack Show. You can also follow Carson on Twitter at Radio Ruben. Now back to the show.
What do you think is the number one option for the Raiders if that player is there? What should the Raiders do?
This is really tough because their needs, there's not like a clear-cut prospect that should be there for their needs. So right now, I'm going to say they could really use a right tackle to make that line something special because the right tackles this year were kind of a revolving door. So I'll say Ryan Ramczyk out of Wisconsin at right tackle. I think he'd be a really good pick. He's not an elite at any aspect of the game. He's just a really solid, well-rounded tackle. So I think the Raiders should go that direction if he's there.
Well, and that in his performance should only be enhanced by how good the rest of the line is, too.
Very true.
Quickly here, are you confident Derek Carr is going to come back from that injury?
Oh, yeah. He's already working out. He's already throwing the ball. He's going to be fine. And he's got that great offensive line that gave up the fewest sacks and the fewest pressures in the NFL last season. So he's going to be okay. He's going to be a great quarterback next year.
And you agree with me on the fact the Browns had a really good offseason?
They had a phenomenal offseason. They came in, they said what they wanted to do. They wanted to beef up their lines, build from the trenches outward, which is exactly how you need to build a franchise. They re-signed Bitonio. They picked up Zeitler out of Cincinnati. It looks like they're going to get Myles Garrett. Love Zeitler. It looks like they're going to get Myles Garrett as a dominant pass rusher off the edge, and they could get another guy at the 12th pick to really help that out too. They've got a ton of cap space. They're clearing their books moving forward. They're building from the ground up the way they need to. If you're a Browns fan, this isn't going to help you for this season, but it's really going to help you moving forward. You did everything that you need to do this offseason.
Osweiler trade was brilliant after I thought it was done.
Very
first,
brilliant.
And then I read
brilliant.
And then I read the details of it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is great.
The NBA does that stuff all the time. It's just it's a cap dump. It's a salary dump.
Exactly. And then quickly, Marshawn Lynch going to pull a Brett Favre here and come back, possibly play for your Raiders. What are your thoughts?
I really don't like the move. I love Marshawn Lynch. Don't get me wrong. He's had a great career. He's an incredible guy. I just think that in a draft that is so loaded at running back, where Oakland needs that first and second down bell cow, drafting a guy in Lynch that's going to be over 30 years old, that's got a ton of mileage on him, that's been away from the game for a year, I just don't like the pick that much. I think they're going to get a really good running back fall to them in the second round, whether it's Kamara, whether it's Joe Mixon, assuming they don't have him off their board for character concerns. I just don't like the move that much. I'm worried it's gonna come back to bite them in the regular season.
And I know I've taken all your time here, Grant, but quickly, what are your last thoughts here on the draft/off season?
So just really quickly, something you'll notice, all the players from player 20th on my big board, give or take, to the early 40s are really close. So the difference between player 20 and player 40 is minimal. So that means there's a lot of variation on teams' boards. And in the first half of the second round, you're going to be getting guys that are first-round values. So if you're picking early in the draft, like Cleveland, I think has 5 of the top 50 picks or something like that, they might get 3 or 4 real studs to build their franchise around. So trading back is going to be really, really good this year if you're a first-round team, assuming you can find a trade partner, which might be really difficult to do. Very deep for running backs and tight ends, which we touched on all the way through the draft. No offensive tackles whatsoever. Last year there were 4 guys that were franchise tackles that came out. Laramie Tunsil, Ronnie Stanley, Jack Conklin, Taylor Decker. All 4 had great rookie years. This year, Garrett Bowles, who's already 25 and is very raw and needs time to develop. Ryan Ramczyk looks solid, but he doesn't look like a franchise left tackle. And then after that, it is a very sharp drop-off. There are a couple guys, but nothing really impressive. And the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks this year are really underwhelming. They're not as good as we've had in past years. Most people are saying Watson is number 1. I have Kaiser number 1. There's Pat Mahomes, who has incredible potential, but is also a big risk to draft him. But just very underwhelmed by the quarterback prospects this year.
He's going to be Brett Favre. Come on.
He could also be out of the league in 4 years.
All right. Well, I think that's going to about do it. I was going to ask you quickly, if Wentz and Goff were both in this draft class,
they would both be ahead of Kaiser or Watson, in my opinion, easily.
Perfect. Okay. That's exactly what I was going to ask. So, yes, this draft is definitely lacking in the quarterbacks and offensive tackles. But it is full of running backs, tight ends, and corners, and even safeties, you can say, and defensive ends.
And edge rushers.
Yes.
Yes.
So there's plenty of opportunities to draft some players, just not offensive tackles or quarterbacks, really. But, Grant, I know we're over time, but I appreciate you taking your time to come on to the You Don't Know Jack show again. He writes for the ArmchairAllAmericans.com. Check out his newly published today, 2017 NFL Big Board 2.0, and catch all of his work on ArmchairAllAmericans.com. And also the Dash to the Draft podcast that can be found on iTunes and via the ArmchairAllAmericans.com. So, Grant, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for putting up with me.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you, and that will do it for the show. We'll be back next week with Jonah, Aaron, and Carson, and until then, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the You Don't Know Jack Show with Jonah, Aaron, and Carson. If you want to read articles, get more information, or have questions about the show, go to our website, youdon'tknowjackshow.com. You can subscribe and listen to the show on iTunes, Google Play,